can be a massive pain and fiddly and time consuming to sort of get it right, but it's worth it in the end. What's happening, guys? Dan Debenham here. We're looking at how to easily get skin tones to some form of okay in Lightroom. Previously it's fiddling with sliders left, right and centre for hours, tweaking here and tweaking there to try and balance the skin tones with the background images and the colour of everything else, and anything that's red in your or yellow or whatever in your image is going to be affected and what have you. But they have given us some tools which allow us to do that in a little bit easier way, and they work with you rather than having you spend hours tweaking things. So let's dive into Lightroom. Let's have a look at it. Okay, so we're in Lightroom and we've got our image in the develop section and we're ready to go. We've got it as a side-by-side comparison so we can see what the differences are between these images once we've edited them, and we can see what the original looked like as opposed to the edited image. So in times gone past, what we would do is we would switch down to the HSL sliders, and then at that point we would then start to mess with the oranges in the image and the reds and the yellows, and we would tweak and twist and we would mess around and we would sort with saturations and stuff, and we would try and get these things to be as saturated and as close to skin tones as we could possibly get them. And we'd tweak and tweak and we'd just keep moving them digits at a time, try and get the luminance right, try and get the depth right, and try and get everything set how it should be. Now we can see this is not really right, but what I'm illustrating here is that this system here, this will alter the entire image. So for instance, if I reset these so that they're all back to where they were, and I click on this here, and then we go, right, okay, we want to alter that, so we want to bring that down slightly, and the saturation we want to bring up here, so we want it to be a little bit more than it was, and we could go along and we could try and get our skin tones to look something like a little bit warmer and a little bit more skin toned, a little bit more tanned, rather than this sort of cold, which is sort of set to blue area. And this will affect all the reds and oranges and the yellows inside this image. So anything that we change, you can see it's changing the entire image. It's even altering the greens slightly. It's adding more yellow into the greens, more orange into the greens. So as I bring it down, greens get darker, bring it up, the greens get lighter, and she gets more green. Now there are other ways of doing this. There is another way of doing it. So the way that we would do it would be that we would instead go down to the brush tool like so, and we can paint in to our picture, and we can make sure that the picture paints in, and we only paint in skin tones. And the easier way of doing that is we've got this nice new tool called Auto Mask. So we can turn Auto Mask on, and we can let it do its own thing. This is just going to be a standard straight. We're not going to tweak with the flow feather or the size of the mask or anything like that. We're going to leave the mask at 2, the density at 89. And then what we're going to do is we're going to paint into our subject. Now, when we do paint into our subject, if we hit O, so if I paint here, like so, if we hit O, we can see where we've painted. We get this red mark here, where we've painted in our mask. And effectively what our Auto Mask will do is try its very best to sort of isolate the tones that you're painting on, so that you don't paint over it. It still involves you being careful, because it's not infallible, and it's, you know, it basically will do the best it can do, but it will make the job a little bit easier. And as we go along, you'll see that while I'm painting it out, obviously with the hair and the skin being a similar sort of colour, I'm trying to be a little bit careful around that. And I don't want the lips, because obviously she's got lipstick on, this lady, and we don't want to change the lipstick colour to be darker or anything like that. So I'm just going to go around the lips there a little bit, down the neck here. I'm going to make this ever so slightly larger,
and I'm going to try and just paint across it. Now, as you can see, it's because there's a white bit of white there on that dress, it's trying to do its best to keep us inside that white. Still got to be a little bit careful. Still got to watch what you're doing. You can't just willy-nilly go off and start painting away and not have a care in the world. But this is making the job much easier. I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. Just getting the edges a little bit, but nothing that we can't write home about, really. I'm just going to get it there like that. I'm going to bring this down a tiny little bit, and I'm just going to bring that in there like that, so we get the hairline as well. And you can see there's a little bit of that. So if I just bring this up, we can always just bring this down and just paint that back out if we have to, and we can just paint that back out as well while we're here. Okay, so we can now take the O off, and we've basically got our sliders set here. So what I can do is I can click on this slider and I can then just move it about. As you can see, we can change it, which can be something from Star Trek, or it can be something else from Star Trek. But again, this is still fine adjustments. So if we use the fine adjustment, what that does is that stops us from whizzing from one side to the other. It just moves it ever so slightly. So we'll get that there. Then we'll just move this up a notch just to give her a little bit more of a tan. Bring this down ever so slightly just to make her a little bit more warmer. This has not affected any of this at all. It's only affecting this masked area, which is her skin, effectively. It's not doing anything else other than making changes to the skin here. And with that there, what we can do is we could go to highlights, let me highlight it, or we can just sort of bring the highlights down slightly, ever so slightly, maybe down by 1 or 2. Fetch the contrast up a little bit, which adds a bit of darkness to it, a bit more definition. And then what we can do is we can bring up the white slightly, just to give it a little bit more feel, and fetch the blacks down a little bit. And then what we can do is add a bit of texture to that, tiny bit of texture. And then effectively, once we've done that, if we close it off, you can see there's a clear difference between the two with the skin tones, where she's a little bit white in this one, and now she's got a little bit more of a colour to her. Again, if we go into the brush again, we can just bring that down slightly. If we click on this mask here, we can then just start to, if we think it's a little bit too red, we can bring it down slightly, so she's still got a bit of colour, but she's in a little bit more realistic, so she's just got a little bit more of a skin tone to her than she has there, and it's not affected the lips, it's not affected anything around the outside of the image, and you can do that repeatedly. So if you wanted to do the greens, or you wanted to do this pathway here on the back of the park, you can quite happily do that, and it doesn't affect the rest of the image. Same with the hair. If you wanted to change the hair colour slightly, we could change the hair colour slightly, and it would then not affect the rest of the image.
So that's my tip on how to easily get great skin tones, how to correct skin tones properly whilst making it easy for yourself within Lightroom, and not spending hours tweaking and twiddling with things, where you can just isolate the one place you want to be and then go for it from there. So with that, I hope you did find it useful. I hope it was entertaining and you got something out of it. And please do like and subscribe below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!